Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sneha and today I'm going to be sharing all about my favorite tiny brushes. So the idea came about from Antariksha actually. We were live on Instagram last week and I think we were doing our eye makeup or something and I was using a really small brush and she suggested that I should actually make a video on my favorite small brushes. So I was like, this is brilliant, let's do it. Now this video will be particularly useful to those of you who have, say, hooded eyes, partially hooded eyes, small eyes, you have small eyelid space, any of these. So the brushes that I'm going to be covering are eyeliner brushes, brushes used for tight lining, brushes for applying eyeshadow to the bottom lash line, to the inner corner, to the crease and the outer V, and yeah, and also little shadow brushes for applying eyeshadows if you have smaller eyelid space. So let's get started. So I'm going to first start off with brushes for eyeliner, and I have quite a few here. So let's go through them. The brush that I used today to create this blue wing liner is by my Kitco. As I bring it in closer, you can see that when there is product through the bristles, it comes to a really fine point, and that is a trait I tend to look for in all eyeliner brushes. Firstly, that it comes to the tapered point, and secondly, after washing, they do retain their shape. That's really important for me. So this is the My Kitco Pro 1.22. Quite similar to that, which do quite similar things, just that the length or the thickness of the bristles may be different, is this brush by Hakuhodo. So in comparison, this is the difference. So the Hakuhodo one is longer and marginally thicker, if that makes sense. And the brush number is I190N5. Now, similar to this, I also have this art brush. This is the Vienna Artist Loft brush number 0. Now, as you can see here right now, it's quite flayed. But once you have the product through it, it does come to a nice fine tip. So that brush is just from an art supply store. Another art brush that I have is the Sable Round 4/0 brush. It's really tiny, if you can see that. Again, great for detail work. And I have a lot more in similar shape and size. I'm just gonna gather a few of them here. So I'm going to club these guys together, so you can see that. They're all similar. Some are thicker than others, but more or less very fine eyeliner brushes. So if you like the names, this first one here is by Hakuhodo. This is I007N6, this one. Next one is Smith 202, the gold brass handle one. Next is by Sean Richards, this one. And the number is 0. Then we have the MAC 210 brush, followed by Louis Young LY24B brush, followed by another London Brush Company Sean Richards brush, Classic 0. And then lastly, this is a Sephora brush with no number or name on it. I believe this was a nail art brush, but I may be wrong. So again, another concept is that don't look for brushes just in makeup stores or makeup brands. I tend to look for brushes anywhere, more or less. So nail brushes are good because they have that fine tip, especially the nail art brushes. Secondly, art brushes are really good. So definitely check those out. And then lastly, I have a thicker, fatter brush for eyeliner if I want to do more of a graphic liner and I want to do it quickly instead of using a small brush to fill up the space. This is by London Brush Company. The number is Innovation 19. This is what that looks like. And the last two brushes that I would recommend for eyeliner are by my Kitco. It's these two brushes right here. This is my absolute favorite, I would say. This is the My Kitco Pro 1.17 brush. So it's like a really tiny angled brush, and it's really fine and tapered. This quite reminds me of this brush by Sigma, which is the EO6 brush. The shape is quite similar, and the size is also more or less similar. But I prefer the My Kitco one because it comes to a finer point and it retains its shape much better than the Sigma brush. So this is the brush I would recommend. So I have multiples of this. Also with this brush, because of the angle and shape, Sometimes I like to use this after I've used a traditional longer eyeliner brush, such as the one I've used today, like this. Sometimes you cannot get a clear line, but this is really nice to go over the edge to clean up any mistakes that you've made, or to clean up any bumps that you may have on the liner. So that's another reason why I love this brush. And then the other brush is this one by my Kitco Pro. This is 1.11. So instead of having that angle shape, this one is more of a tapered brush. So imagine a really tiny lip brush. That's the shape of this one. Again, they all retain the shape really well after washing, which is why I love these brushes. Next, moving on to tight lining, I have two brushes that I can recommend, which are these two. The first one here is by Wayne Goss. This is brush number 8. It's really good to fill in the gap between the lashes, to almost stamp it along the lash line. It creates a thicker lash line effect, so I love that for it. Another great brush for that is by MAC. This is the 263, I believe. Again, really fine, you can see that. Retains its shape really well, and it's larger, so if you're in a rush, it's easier to go with this instead of the Wayne Goss brush. Next, moving on to blending brushes. Now, all these brushes are smaller than, say, a MAC 217, so that's the kind of criteria I've maintained for selecting these blending crease style brushes. So first I have these 4 brushes right here. Now these are slightly more of a softer dome, if that makes sense. So good for blending out shades in the crease, especially if you have smaller eyelids or smaller crease area. So this first one right here is by Sigma. It's the E45 brush. The next one is by Kitstars, which is N30 small tapered blender. The third one over is by Wayne Goss, brush number 17. And the last one is by Cosette, D220. I especially like the Cosette one also for cream products. So that's a bonus because it's a nice synthetic brush and it also washes off products quite easily, and it's dark bristle, which I prefer for cream products. Again, the size of these is really nice to fit into the socket, and you can really apply eyeshadow to a small focused area. Next, I have brushes that are slightly more tapered than the first set that I showed you. So it's these 4 right here. The first one is the Sonia G Crease Pro brush, which is this guy. Next to it is Wayne Goss brush number 19. The third one over is Louise Young LY38. And the last brush is by Esam S33. So as you can see, the shape of these brushes is slightly more tapered and pointed at the end compared to, say, the first set that I showed you. So these brushes are really good for packing on color. So say you want to apply it to a certain area, and then some of these other brushes are also good for blending. So you can not only apply the color, but also do soft blending motion with this kind of brush style. Next set of brushes are even smaller crease brushes. So it's a set of these 6. This first one right here is the Esam W36 brush. And that's a brush quite different from the others. So I'm going to keep that aside, and I'll speak about that in a bit. And then these 5 I would say are quite similar. The first one here is by my Kitco 1.3 brush. The second one is Wayne Goss brush number 20. The third one is MAC 221S. The fourth one is Wayne Goss brush number 19. And the last one here is by Hakuhodo J146. Now again, compared to the size of the previous brush, say for example the Esam S33 next to it, you can see how much smaller these brushes are. So again, these brushes are brilliant for applying shades to a smaller area, also blending it out because none of these are too tapered or pointed, so they also give soft blending motion. So you can try any of these and you won't be disappointed. These are also amazing brushes for applying shadow to the bottom lash line or the outer corner of the eye. Now the first brush from this lot that I mentioned, which was Esam W36, has this unique shape, if you can see that. So it's slanted on one side, which creates that tip on the other side right here. So this one is the tip, then you can use it on its side as well. So the brush on its side is really nice when you want to create that outer V in one sweep. It's really nice. Or you can use the tip to apply shades to the bottom lash line or to the socket. So apply the shade to this portion, and then the slope, all the other bristles are going to blend it into the socket. Again, a really good brush for smaller eyes and for detailed crease work. Next, for crease work, I also have these two brushes, which are skinnier yet fluffy style of brushes. You can see that the bristles have a lot of give and they are good for blending out. This first one is by Cosette. This is the S185, the purple one. And then the black one is by Sigma. It's the E36 blending brush. So again, these are good when I want a light wash of color, or say, for example, you have areas where the eyeshadow is not blending or attaching. I would go with this brush and just gently pat on those areas. Or if you want a light wash of color, you can just gently apply it with this brush. So that's what I use these two for. Lastly, for crease, I have three more brushes, which look like this. Again, some of them have that tapered shape, the first two. The first one is more of a domed, flatter brush, but quite dense for picking up color. As explained before, again, these are beautiful for applying color to a certain focused area. The first one is the Louis Young LY38B. The second one is Cosette P365. And the third one is my Kitco Pro 1.20. Now moving on to brushes for the mobile eyelid. Now, depending on how much space you have on your eyelid, you may use different size of brushes. So I'm going to start off with the slightly bigger versions and then go down in size. Okay, so I have these four as flat, dense brushes to pick up color for applying it to the mobile eyelid. The first one here is Hakuhodo J242. The next one is Louis Young LY18V. It's the vegan brushes. The one next to it, the third over, is Cosette D240. And the last one is Esam W21. So all of these brushes are really nice to pack on color onto the eyelid. Now again, as I said, depending on the eyelid space, I have some other recommendations if you have smaller lids than mine. But I do find that the Esam W21 or any of these brushes is a good size to go over the majority of my eyelid. Next, for slightly smaller eyelids, I have a few brushes, such as these. This first one is a baby Hakuhodo brush. I don't have the number on it, but if I find it, I will put it up on the screen. It's probably one of my favorites for detail work on the eyelid. The next one is by London Brush Company. It's actually a lip brush, I believe, Classic 3, but I also like to use it for eyelid just because of that beautiful shape at the end. The third one is by Cosette. It's B370. Again, since it's synthetic, it's beautiful to apply with cream products as well. The fourth one over is by Esam. It's W19. Again, it can be used as a lip brush and as an eyelid brush. The fifth one is a brush from AOFM, but just look at the shape. Anything similar will work for it. Again, initially meant for a lip brush, I believe. But again, I like that smaller, tapered kind of shape for getting into the smaller eyelid spaces. And then lastly, I have another brush from London Brush Company, which is Classic number 4. So it has slightly more tapered shape compared to the second brush. So again, any of these would be lovely to apply it to a smaller eyelid space or even to the inner corner if you have a larger eyelid space. Sorry, but I forgot to add these two brushes to this category. So this one is Morphe M41, which is this guy. And this is a Filbert number 2 brush, again from an art store. Again, these are really nice to apply shades to the eyelid. Next, moving on to brushes that are lovely for applying shades to the lower lash line. Now, I have different sizes depending on whether I'm doing a blending action or if I'm packing on shade just very close to the lash line. So you'll see a range of sizes in these brushes as well. So these are the type of brushes that I tend to use when I want a very diffused look on the lower lash line. So this one on the right is by Chikuhodo, and the brush is called Eyeshadow Brush by Chikuhodo. And the one next to it is the Hakuhodo J146. So any of the brushes that I showed you with this category or that size are good for applying it on the lower lash line. Next, if I want slightly more concentrated blending, then I tend to use these two brushes. So the first one here is by Peaches and Cream. It's PC07. And the next one is Esom S31. Again, because of the shape, they tend to pick up slightly more product and they're more thicker, if that makes sense, compared to the brushes that I'm going to show you next, which are more tapered or pointy. So the width of the lower lash line would be larger with these brushes. Another brush that I like to use is this one from Real Techniques. It's their accent brush. Again, good if I want to just stamp on some eyeshadow along the lower lash line, the outer third, any of those. And then lastly come these very detailed, tiny brushes for the lower lash line. This first one is by London Brush Company. It doesn't have a number on it, but if I do find it, I will leave it on the screen. The second one is a Hakuhodo brush, again with no number. The third one is by London Brush Company. It's the classic 1/8 brush. The next one is Refer 03 brush. And the last one is the PAC PAC brush 133. So any of these brushes will work for the lower lash line, especially when you want depth very close to the lash line. Now, any of those brushes will also work for the inner corner highlight, but in general, I tend to prefer small brushes. So even some of these will work for those. The first one is Morphe M156, and that's the smaller side of the brush. It's a dual-ended brush. The second one is a Fox lip brush. I don't know where I picked it up from, but that's the shape of it. And the third one is probably an eyeliner brush that you get with the L'Oreal or Maybelline gel liners. So anything small and compact like these, I really like for inner corner highlight. So that's all the tiny brushes that I own. I hope this video was helpful to you guys, and if you enjoyed it, definitely give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!